Well, hello everyone and welcome to today's webinar. Today we will dive into a very exciting topic, award-winning excellence, how the retirement advantage transformed employee engagement through professional development. This session is eligible for HRCI, SHRM, and ATD professional development credits. Before we dive into today's content, let me tell you about Brennan Hall Group and some incredible opportunities that could accelerate your career. Brennan Hall Group is a leading professional development firm that has been serving learning, talent, and HR executives worldwide for more than 30 years. We've advanced the growth and performance of millions of employees through our cloud-based platform, delivering evidence-based research, data, and certification programs that empower organizations to achieve excellence in every area of human capital management. Our impact spans more than 10 million employees and executives globally, supported by our comprehensive research library, strategic insights, and prestigious awards program. Below is a sample of the organizations we are proud to partner with. We have incredible learning and networking opportunities. We have our 2 BRIC events scheduled for next year, our AI Summit on October 15th and 16th, and our Women in Leadership event on November 18th. We also invite you to participate in our research studies. Links will be available after the webinar, or you can always visit brennanhall.com. Once results are analyzed, all participants receive a piece of complimentary research and other exclusive benefits. All details and applications for everything I've mentioned will be available in a PDF you'll receive within 24 hours after the webinar. I'm excited to share more about the Brennan Hall Group Excellence Awards, 4 prestigious programs recognizing organizational excellence. The Technology Awards recognize solution providers in learning, talent management, and workforce technologies, launching April 20th with a September 4th deadline. Our Education Technology Awards celebrate K-12, universities, and education associations transforming learning, following the same April to September timeline. The Excellence in Action Award spotlight organizations of all sizes that prioritize employee voices and create people-centric cultures, with 2025 announcements on December 10th and the 2026 program launching in May. Finally, the HCM Awards honor innovation in training, learning, and HR, launching January 5th with an April 10th deadline. Whether you're an HR team, technology provider, educational institution, or organization committed to employee engagement, there's a Brennan Hall Group Award designed to recognize your achievements and elevate your reputation in the industry. Speaking of celebrating our award winners, we host our annual awards gala at the HCM Excellence Conference. In addition to this celebration of excellence, the conference offers 4 days of sessions packed with research insights, proven frameworks, and award-winning organizations sharing their best practices on stage and throughout numerous networking events. We hope you'll join us February 9th through 12th in West Palm Beach, Florida. Now, just a few quick things to note before we get started. If any of you have questions during the webinar, please use the questions panel on your control bar. We'll be answering them throughout the session. We're also recording today's webinar, and you'll receive an email within 24 hours with a link to the recording and a PDF of the slides. The chat box is open, so feel free to share your thoughts as we go along. Your input makes this more valuable for everyone. Now, I would like to pass things off to David and Chris.
Well, perfect. Thank you so much, Ivy, and welcome, Chris, to the webinar. For those who don't know me, my name is David Forey. I'm a Senior Vice President and Principal Analyst here at Brennan Hall Group, and I'm joined by Chris, who's TRA's Organizational Development and Integration Manager. Chris leads with passion for building a culture of continuous learning, employee engagement, and operational excellence. With a strong foundation in continuous improvement, Chris identifies and drives efficiency opportunities across the organization to help teams work smarter and more effectively. So today we're going to go through TRA's award-winning program. So Chris is going to walk us through the program that they won from Brennan Hall Group's HCM Excellence Awards. And then we're going to also open things up for questions and unpack that into kind of a part 2, where we're going to talk about some of the key strategic items that we really focus on from our awards standpoint. And you can see those on the screen here with strategic alignment, design and development, implementation and delivery, measurement impact, and as well as the future and lessons learned. So as Chris walks through this presentation in the next couple of minutes, be thinking of those things and items you might want to ask Chris or myself about further. And as Ivy and I mentioned, Chris's team at the Retirement Advantage won a Learning and Development Award for their best Competencies and Skills Development program. And Chris is going to share more about that award-winning program. But first of all, congrats, Chris.
Thanks, David. Appreciate that. Okay. Well, good morning, everybody. As Dave mentioned, my name is Chris Bettinelli. I'm the Integration and Organization Development Manager here at TRA. What I wanted to do, I think the best way to position our program is to share the story about how we truly turned a challenge into an opportunity. And in the process, we discovered the benefits of a smile. So Ivy, you can change slides. To really tell this story effectively, we need to start at the beginning, which for us was right after the pandemic during the early days of 2022. Like other companies during this time, we faced the perfect storm, which did include the Great Resignation. But for our company, this wasn't just a social trend, it was real, and it had a big impact on our organization. During this time, we experienced workforce turnover at a pace unlike anything we had seen in previous periods of uncertain business cycles. The turnover had a true ripple effect throughout the company. We saw morale slipping, the quality of work fading, and we even noticed less pleasantries being used within internal and external communications. It also became noticeable there was a significant knowledge depreciation, which was seen in slower turnaround times and having limited resources or people to go to for answers. With so many areas being impacted at once, we realized that simply hiring new employees or delivering functional training would only provide a short-term fix. We truly needed a cultural reset. At this point, this wasn't just about recovery. It was about reimagining how we engage, train, and support our people. You can move. With all these signals, we knew something wasn't right. But the question was, how big was the problem? Is it larger than anything we had faced before, or are we even structured to address the issues? So with this realization and having so many unanswered questions, we welcomed the challenge, rolled up our sleeves, and got to work trying to understand the issues. The first step was to triage the total situation to uncover what we didn't know about the issues and start piecing together a path forward. We started by reviewing our training inventory and documenting everything we had available to us. We then connected with industry peers to see if we weren't alone or to see if they had something that could help. Unfortunately, they found themselves in a similar situation. We asked our leadership team to provide their perspective and an overall read, a general read on the workforce. And finally, we gathered data from exit interviews and direct feedback from managers and team leads for anything we could use to address the situation. The overall goal was simple: to understand the root causes, not just the symptoms. So just by asking the right questions and taking a closer look at our current structure, we uncovered several areas that were truly alarming. What we learned that, we learned that the resources to meet the needs of the employees were no longer effective or easily accessible. Employee turnover was high with no signs of slowing or any reason why it should. Engagement levels were low and fading further with the effects reaching outside of the company. There was a significant knowledge drain across the entire organization due to the loss of key dependencies. The workforce was unstable because we really didn't know how to help them navigate the current environment effectively. Service delivery was suffering, which was affecting business partner relationships and client retention. And finally, our training strategy wasn't resonating with the workforce. At this point, it was clear we were in a crisis. Moving forward meant leaving behind the old ways and embracing something new that motivates, energizes, and gives us a renewed sense of purpose. So in response to this self-declared crisis, we launched a company-wide skills assessment to really understand where we stood. This wasn't just a quick survey, it was a deep dive. We started by talking with teams and individual team members to get a clear picture of the tasks they handle every day. Then we developed and rolled out detailed employee assessments, giving everyone the chance to rate their own proficiency by task within their respective role. Finally, we gave managers detailed reports showing individual and team proficiency levels, along with targeted training suggestions to close any gaps. The findings coming out of the assessment were truly eye-opening. We found that self-proclaimed functional knowledge gaps were everywhere throughout the organization. A reoccurring theme was the lack of training opportunities across all teams, which was not something frequently heard prior to the pandemic. 22% of the workload was carried by a small group of overworked leaders and senior staff. We call this 22% number a resource drain. But there was some good news in the data. Based on the way we categorized the tasks, we were able to identify 7 core competencies that we truly felt were driving this resource drain. At this time, with a better understanding of the issues, it was time to formulate a solution. After weighing different options, we realized we needed focus. So we stepped back, clarified where we stood, and uncovered what was driving the challenges. From there, we built a strategy around 4 key pillars. First, resetting our culture by bringing back positivity and collaboration. Next was focusing on core competencies to rebuild confidence and skills. Third, reduce resource drain by reinforcing purpose and continuous learning. And fourth, consistently make data-driven decisions that meet the needs of the workforce. Each of these pillars were selected to rebuild confidence, strengthen skills, cultivate a positive and collaborative environment. With direction, clarity, and focus, it was simply time to build. We knew we weren't just responding to challenges anymore, we were shaping our future. So coming out of a robust data gathering process, we arrived at one powerful solution, the creation of the SMILE program. This program was intentionally designed to align with our path forward approach and to promote positivity and collaboration across the workforce. We chose the term SMILE because it's relatable, easy to remember, and conveys optimism. It was designed to function as both a noun and a verb, supported by a logo that symbolizes teamwork and working together. As you can see, SMILE isn't just a word, it's an acronym. It stands for service excellence, mutualism, integrity, listen, and execution. These are the core values we hope our team members embrace every day. The foundation of this program is built on 7 core competencies identified through the company-wide skills assessment. These include customer service, communication, problem solving, consulting, advising, collaboration, personal effectiveness, and data literacy and integrity. We believe by focusing on these key competencies, we can boost employee confidence and energize our workforce for long-term success. Like any program, training was essential. But with a workforce that felt disconnected, we knew a traditional approach wouldn't work. It had to be flexible, non-intrusive, and empower people to learn on their own terms. That's why we introduced regular micro trainings in a simple, adaptable read, watch, grow format. This approach caters to different learning styles and keeps things bite-sized and digestible. Each deployment focuses on one of the 7 competencies to build skills incrementally without overwhelming the employee. The timing of these trainings is intentional. We designed the cadence to fit around high volume periods so learning never felt like an added burden. In simple terms, here's how it works. Every month, we send out 2 emails and content through our Read, Watch, Grow format. This isn't formal training. It's designed to feel natural, like a colleague sharing something helpful, a quick article, a short video, or a practical tip that sparks curiosity without feeling like a task. To keep the momentum going, we built a feedback loop by developing monthly pulse checks with only 2 questions. These were designed to show if an employee is just a little better today than they were yesterday in relation to that month's competency. It's also how we track progress and adjust the program when needed. We also introduced the Smile Champion tool, which is a kudos tool that gives employees an opportunity to recognize peers who actually display the SMILE principles. Overall, we created and delivered what we believed could reshape our culture and re-energize our people. While there were no guarantees, we trusted the process and simply waited to see if the program met our intended results. After all the hard work, strong leadership, and incredible company-wide support, I'm excited to share that the results truly speak for themselves. To date, we have seen an improvement in overall communications with more single contact resolution, in addition to the use of more pleasantries in all communications. There has been a noticeable increase in proficiency, which is validated by a significant decrease in our resource strain from 22% to 11.42%. So we cut that in half, along with teams consistently meeting deliverables ahead of schedule. There's also been an increase in engagement, with over 30% of the workforce consistently engaging with Smile content. Recognition and feedback also soared, with a 32.8% increase in Smile Champion submissions and a 300% jump in our annual survey participation. So, are we happy with the results? Yes. But we do know there's still plenty of room to grow and work to do. Getting here wasn't easy. It came with its share of setbacks. But like any strong learning and development team, we turned every challenge into an opportunity to improve. The key lessons we learned early on in the Smile program is that agility is everything. We had to stay flexible and make quick adjustments when needed. Leadership buy-in matters. Getting leaders on board early was critical to driving participation. Consistency counts. Keep content and delivery frequency steady and avoid doubling down on the same material. The feedback is vital. We listened, vetted, and made strategic changes that benefited the majority. And evolution is essential. To keep engagement high, the program had to refresh and adapt over time, especially for employees who became desensitized to the content. Staying true to these understandings helped us stay responsive, relevant, and in tune with the needs of the workforce. The value of trial and error isn't just in what we learn, it's how we help others with how we help others start with fewer obstacles. So if anyone on this call is thinking about launching a similar initiative or considering some sort of change, here are a few lessons from our process. First, start with data. It's the only way to know where to focus your efforts. Next, keep learning natural. Make it feel like part of the day, not a formal training session. Be tactical about cultural change. It doesn't happen overnight. You have to plan for it and trust your process. Listen and adapt. Pay attention to feedback and make changes when they matter. Celebrate wins. Share successes and recognize employees along the way. Changing culture isn't easy, but it's absolutely possible, even in tough times. If you take it step by step and celebrate the wins along the way, real change will happen. Looking ahead, we're excited to take Smile to the next level by weaving technology and tools into the program in ways that feel effortless and naturally fit into everyday routines. Some of the items we're considering for the future are using AI agents for real-time learning and coaching, introducing leadership dashboards with Smile insights to help guide employee development, turning real employee experiences into case studies that inspire and teach, aligning Smile with other company initiatives for even greater impact. And we may even consider taking Smile beyond the workplace and possibly sending branded items to employees' homes to reinforce our purpose. Overall, our goal is to keep building on the positive momentum and achieving even greater employee outcomes. I want to thank everybody so much for spending your time with me today. And I really hope this gave you a clear look at how a thoughtful, people-first approach can turn challenges into opportunities, and how something as simple as a smile can make a real difference. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chris. And I certainly remember, the days and talking with lots of organizations that were in very similar shoes to you and your organization. And I think, although a lot of us are out of that, we still wrestle with a lot of the same things that we were, the last 5 years. So I think a lot of these points can really be transferred, and it's a very powerful and transformational story. And what I love most is the use of your data, that empathy component, and then really the consistency to rebuild the capabilities and confidence of your organization. I think that's something that we can really take forward. So we're going to dive into some Q&A. I know that there's already been 2 questions in the chat, very similar. But before we get there, I'd love to hear what surprised you most, Chris, during the skills assessment phase, and how did you use those insights to shape the direction of Smile?
Mm-hmm. So the biggest thing that came up out of the skill assessment was this resource drain. So that we were able to truly quantify what percentage of time that leaders and or senior staff were applying towards um, other non-leaders tasks. So as an example, if I'm um, an individual on a team that's asked to perform a task and they rated themselves, when they rated their proficiency levels, they had rated themselves to suggest that they were about 78% proficient in all the tasks that they had. And the fact that, or the idea that we would look at that and say, well, who is to make up that difference? And it ended up being the senior staff and the leaders. So it's like we're asking the leadership team and the senior staff members to take on an additional 28% more work just because we have some workforce individuals that are suggesting that they're not proficient in these levels themselves. So it was really eye-opening to see that there was 22% of the work being, or excuse me, 22% of the work being pushed to another group of individuals.
That's great. Now, Chris, talking about like building the momentum, as Smile gained traction, what were some of the specific behaviors or culture shifts did you see that made you think, okay, this is really working? And then also let's compound that by, looking at the leadership teams that you just mentioned, because I know Melody and Brianna were asking that question in the chat about the leadership support, and or if there was resistance from the managers.
Sure. So some of the positive things that we saw early on, one of which was I had mentioned that when we did the initial assessment, when we recognized that we were in a crisis, we really weren't seeing the use of a lot of pleasantries across the board. Just to be very frank here, a lot of the communications that were happening internally were very pointed. There was a lot of communications that were going back and forth. So when people would respond to them, they weren't necessarily answering the question that was being asked. So there was a lot of back and forth. Um, Within a very short period of time into the program, we started seeing less back and forth emails and the use of more pleasantries like please and thank you and you're welcome and so on. So a lot of that type of interaction. When we introduced the Smile Champion tool, which is again is just a simple kudos tool where people have the opportunity to go in and say somebody did a great job, they helped me out and I just wanted to acknowledge that. Once we rolled that out, we saw like an amazing transformation of the organization of just using that and being willing to mention that somebody did a great job. Prior to that, we didn't really have a tool that anybody could use to acknowledge somebody doing a good job. So the fact that we push this out there and we see a lot of people doing that, I thought that that was totally amazing. So when we saw some of these things, it made us feel like we were doing partly, good work here, that we're shifting the culture a little bit. So we're making a bit of a difference. From like a general leadership perspective, just like anything else, I mean, we were introducing a new concept. We were introducing something that was going to change in the environment. And trying to get buy-in from the leadership team wasn't easy, quite frankly. We had to just spend time with some managers individually just to have conversations with them. We would talk about it in group formats to try to get some buy-in. And even though we were getting general buy-in from the initial rollout of the Smile program itself, it was more so because they didn't really know what it was, and they were putting some level of trust and faith in the organization development team here at the Retirement Advantage. Even though we were still pushing it out, what we were finding is the engagement of the content itself within the workforce was levelizing. It wasn't really increasing and it wasn't really decreasing. We were finding it more at a level type um, uh, set when it came to the actual reaction to it. So what we did is we began to talk more about it. We began to send emails out to the management team asking them to champion this on our behalf, and we were able to kind of get it to tick up a little bit. But I would just say generally, with any program that gets rolled out within an organization, it is tough to get leadership buy-in. I think especially when it comes to a lot of organization development stuff. So a lot of what teams like ours roll out are subjective, right? So we're trying to create an environment where we just want people to enjoy being here and come to work and actually perform the task. We're not actually teaching them how to do the task per se. We just we're trying to create a mindset where they actually want to do the task. And so when you look at like programs like this and where we were at a point where the workforce was in a different mindset coming out of the pandemic. They were in a point of uncertainty. They didn't know what was going on. And I think because of it, when I talked about knowledge gaps, I mentioned that it was self-proclaimed knowledge gaps. So it's not likely that the knowledge gaps truly existed, meaning they understood the tasks that they needed to perform on a daily basis. It was the mindset to believe that there was a knowledge gap because they were trying to answer questions in their own mind of why do I feel this way? Why do I feel kind of beaten down a little bit and so on? And it's because we just came out of like a very traumatic event like the pandemic. And I think it translated a little bit into the organization itself. And so to wrap it all up, the leadership buy-in does matter. So we need that championship throughout the organization. And just doing those little things, getting people to add pleasantries and offer feedback and collaborate with their peer group did did shift, I think, the mindsets of the employees, which brought us from that 22% resource drain down to 11%. And truth be told, from an organization development perspective, we didn't do any functional training. We did more soft skill type training throughout the year. And again, it was just creating more of that mindset shift.
Yeah, that's great, Chris. We're gonna pause for a quick poll, and then I have another question for you, Chris, on the other side of this. So this poll is gonna launch. What would you like to learn more about from Brandon Hall Group? Is it about the Excellence Conference that Ivy mentioned? More information about our awards program, or information about our institute membership? So that is going to stay up. And Chris, based on your last point, I think you're right. The pandemic certainly shifted us into this mode of, we need to look at engagement. We need to care about our think about our employees' well-being, mental stability, psychological safety, all of those things that we are talking a lot about in the workforce. But now we have those same things happening with AI, and people are worried about losing their job to artificial intelligence. People are trying to upskill themselves to use AI. There's lots of different functions that are, quite frankly, very similar. So, I like that you talked about, some of those components of, making sure they're still in use today. So, if we can go ahead and close the poll, Ivy, if we could think about like what you could use from Smile in other programs, when you went about designing your choices for Smile, what do you think are most replicable for other programs that you might build? Because you talked about micro learning, the recognition component, the monthly competencies. Are some of those skills being used to apply to other programs that you're launching within your organization?
100% yes. And it's interesting that you bring that up. So looking into the future, looking into 2026, right now, a lot of our focus was around just the entire workforce, right? So we were looking at the entire workforce, trying to get that on track, fully engaged. Um, we recognized a bit of a miss with the program too, and that miss was our leadership team, quite frankly. So we didn't have an intentional focus to any one finite group of employee here at the organization, and I think that we were able to not turn around the workforce 100%, but we definitely shifted that mindset, and we're in a much better place than we were almost 3 years ago. But I think absent of that, we didn't have that focus on the leadership team. So one of the things that we're considering for 2026 is to take a lot of the principles and the initiatives and the strategic way that we rolled out Smile, to go ahead and now shift the focus to a leadership development type program here within the organization itself. You also mentioned AI and how that's changing everything, and how we all do business here. I mentioned the introduction of potential AI agents and things like that. So with Smile and any other initiative that we do going forward, and I mentioned this too, you have to evolve, you have to change. And we learned that throughout the Smile program too. There were times where we thought we were presenting something that was super valuable. So we would double down on that. We would send more emails and so on. So you really want to focus on this because this is a good thing. It actually pulled people away from doing that. So you have to understand who your audience is. I, AI is here to stay, and if you can introduce elements that help them understand, David, that they are not being eliminated as a workforce, you can use AI as something to really build upon the skills that you have and reinforce what you do here. So these AI agents and things like that will fall within our Smile program. They'll have like the ability to quiz themselves. They'll have the ability to put simple prompts in that will kick back the guiding principles of Smile and our culture here at TRA, and so on. So I think it's just finding a way to mix in what is going on in the current environment. And that's how you evolve. And that's why I say evolution is necessary, and so is agility. You got to be able to make those changes.
Great feedback. And I just want to be conscious of time. I know that this was originally scheduled for 30 minutes. We are at time. So I do want to say thank you to everybody that joined us, especially Chris, for sharing your insights. We do have a couple more comments, questions in the chat. If you're willing to stay on, Chris, for a couple more minutes and answer some of those, that'd be great. But again, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Chris, and Ivy, for helping us share this wonderful story about Smile. And hopefully some others on the call can learn from Chris's story and how you can implement that within your organization. So, Chris, I'm not sure if you can see the chat, but we have some questions more on the financial impact, and I imagine you probably can't share that given your organization's business. But if you can share a little bit about some of the metrics of, like what doubling your manager's availability time did for the organization, or anything else that, like you mentioned some really great use cases, but if you can share a little bit further about what the cost savings were, productivity gain that represented for your company.
Sure. Yeah, from a true financial perspective, I would not be able to share that. But a couple things that I can say is, um, so if we rewind back to 2022, even into 2023, and so on, one of the things that we were noticing was like client retention was slipping too. So we were seeing a decrease in client retention, and some of it had to do with the businesses just going out of business due to the pandemic and so on. But it ended up being more of like the snowball type effect, if you think about it that way. So we had companies that were going out of business, and we service companies, so that would just naturally affect client retention. But then you had this mindset from a workforce that, again, they were in uncertain periods of time in their own mind, so they didn't know how to react. So they became more pointed, less pleasantries, and so on. what we did notice in a shorter period of time is, I think, with these better communications occurring between employees internally, but also externally, along with some of the partners that we have to help bring in business here to the organization, we started seeing more of a levelization of that. And it wasn't this extreme nature of, we're going to jump off the boat. We don't want to be here anymore with, being serviced by your company. More to the extent of, we'll give you a chance here. We'll give you a shot at, trying to straighten up whatever's going on internally, and we'll stick through it. And I think because that occurred back then, we saw and we see right now a nice levelization of our client base, and even to the upside right now today. So we're about 3 years into this, and we're seeing now more of an upside, more levelization, and we're growing even better. So we have found a way to strengthen those actual relationships themselves. I'll also say that what helped is this Smile Champion tool. So we get a lot of usage on that. And why I say that helped is because it gives people the opportunity to give somebody else a kudos, but it gets them thinking differently about why they come in every single day, and it makes them a little bit more productive. They're like, hey, if John Smith can do that, if he can step up and go above and beyond, well, so can I, because we make these Smile Champion Award submissions very visible. So we have seen an increase in production to the extent that we're meeting our deliverables ahead of schedule. And that really wasn't happening, I don't want to say at all, because that would be too broad of a statement, but as frequently prior to the Smile program. So when we measure this thing, unfortunately, we're kind of at a point of looking at it from an intangible type perspective to say, hey, we think we influence that. But I don't want to discount the fact that other teams' hard work in restructuring their organization a little bit, maybe introducing different metrics and having their own type of like huddles and things like that doesn't help the situation. But I think that just holistically shifting that mindset truly affected the business by just levelizing our client retention, just keeping it where it is so we're not seeing a huge decline there, and then just getting things turned around a lot quicker. And certainly client intermediary relationships have improved significantly as well over the same period of time.
Thanks for expanding on that, Chris.
Of course.
And again, I wanted to say thank you for joining us. Thank you for spending a couple extra minutes, Chris. Thank you all for sticking around, and we hope to see you on the next award-winning webinar, where we share another use case from another organization that won a Brandon Hall Group HCM Excellence Awards. Thank you all. Have a great day.
Awesome. Thank you.